The honesty factor is, what should I say, in the tanks. So hopefully you can learn from that. The whole package has to be in writing because you're going to have to sue to enforce it. Unless this is a new company that's far, far superior than Fairmont, that's been around for, I don't know, a number of years. Pretty reputable, beautiful website, fabulous photography, great TV ads. When your kids are watching TV on Saturday morning and they see the dancing bear telling how nice miners are, if you've been wronged, it irritates you very much. Yesterday, if you drove down Highway 12 into Menominee, there was a cloud of billowing crystalline silica in the air. A cloud. Unbelievable. Now, I'm sure some mistakes were being made, obviously. Hopefully somebody got canned, but it was amazing. I have pictures here of the blasting on July 3rd. The initial blasting, the first couple of times, are pretty spectacular because there's a lot of dirt to throw in the air. And then the follow-up blasting, like was mentioned, I believe, by Jeff, where they simply roll the rock away from the high wall. It sounds like a shotgun, and there's a cloud of dust, and it goes whichever way the wind is blowing. Well, that dust is what's called freshly fractured silica. It's made up of shards, little miniature pieces of rock that you can breathe in, you never get rid of. It's like getting a sliver off a cable. The only thing on the outside of your body, you shed your skin eventually. You don't shed your lungs. Now, the sad thing about this whole issue, and the Miller study that was completed in '07 covered it, a 30-year study, is that 20 to 30 years after mismanagement takes place, that's when the statistics start to roll in. Well, these guys are gone. They're retired already. The workers are gone, and people move, and the statistics start to kind of fall apart. With the Miller study, Ms. Miller is at the is at Fred Hutchins Cancer Center in Seattle, and it was a 30-year study. It's quite good. There was a second one earlier in the year of '07, and Wisconsin has a lot of reports. If you talk to Dr. Basil Varkey on freshly fractured silica, he's very good. He tries to be very politically correct and nice, but he knows the issue. The problem is the freshly fractured silica, once it leaves, and I have pictures here for you to look at, once it leaves, you don't know where it goes. So Andy, I see, is here. He lives right in the mine virtually, and I just bought a measuring device for him to put in his home because I thought it'd be a good experiment, because you do need thorough filtering of the air in your home and in your automobile if you're near a silica mine, because it's all freshly fractured. That's what the product is freshly fractured. So the big thing, I guess, from our experience is, in Dunn County, is if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. One homeowner has no water, as what I heard. The lady in the bank was laughing, and she says, "Did you hear? Did you hear? Somebody's well went dry." I guess these people were sort of pro-mining, and maybe they're less pro-mining now. And maybe the mine company will rush over and get them a new well or buy their home. I don't know. But I doubt if there's any contract in place. So if you have any questions, I got a few pictures you can look at. This is not a sand and gravel pit. Sand and gravel, we need it. It's dusty. But it's not freshly fractured. It's been washed for decades. It's relatively safe. And we need it. And we don't like the gravel trucks spilling on our roads. But we need it. We tolerate it. We have a product that the mining companies are after. It's all over the world. But here, it's easy to mine because it's near the top. I have a picture of the geology if you'd like a picture of that. It's near the top. They'd rather do that than go underground like at Maiden Rock or along the Mississippi River. It costs a little more to burrow in and convey it to the road, to the railroad or to the barges. But at least it's a lot cleaner. I'll be around if you have any questions. I have some pictures and some information. It's been a long, harrowing experience. We almost had a second one in our neighborhood. In fall of '06, Mel Ballum, at a public meeting under oath, said he had plans, he had identified 28 good silica sites in the area. At a meeting a year earlier, a young attorney who I had as a student when he was in high school was working in Washington, D.C., and some businessmen said they thought there were 150 good sites in West Wisconsin. That's just hearsay, it doesn't mean anything, but what would Western Wisconsin look like should this thing begin to explode? And this is my number 4, 5, and 6, and maybe 7 for Mel the mine salesman to pitch. So it's not 1, 2, 3. Everybody needs to do their job because it's risky business for the economy and the environment.
I'm Crispin Pierce. I'm an assistant professor of environmental public health here at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, also trained as a toxicologist. I have a PhD in toxicology. And I want to make it clear that I don't represent the university in this discussion, but I certainly represent the community in my interest in making sure that the sand plant health risks are understood, communicated to the public and to decision makers so that we can make a decision about whether or not to move forward with this facility. 3 main classes of chemicals that we're concerned about from this facility. The first is particulate matter. And particulate matter is formed when we burn materials. There's coalescing of different chemicals on particulates, as well as, of course, particulates generated from the sand operation itself. These are little particles, and those particles become airborne as dust. The second group is called the criteria pollutants, things like nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, ozone, and that's an issue particularly when we have a combustion process, for example, with the sand dryers. The third is called hazardous air pollutants, or HAPs, and those are chemicals like benzene that are particularly dangerous, chemicals that cause cancer or other very serious effects. So those are the 3 groups of chemical and particulate emissions that would come from this facility. In taking a look at the construction permit that's provided by DNR, and the recent one, done about mid-April, I have concerns in 3 areas. The principal concern I have is in regards to crystalline silica, and that's one of the components of sand and gravel operations. Crystalline silica has been declared by a number of international organizations as a human carcinogen, a chemical that causes cancer. It's also called silicosis of the lung. It's a real long-term or chronic exposure hazard. The challenge with these kinds of chemicals is that we wouldn't see effects necessarily after a day, a week, a month, or even a year, but people exposed long-term would have lung problems, difficulty breathing, potentially lung cancer, issues all related around to respiration. Of course, that's related to cardiovascular disease. So that's my principal consideration, that the DNR has not considered the risks of crystalline silica because they are not legally required to do so. Second and secondary issues, I would say, include the diesel truck traffic in and out of this facility. If we're talking maybe 150 truck trips per day, we know this can be particulate emissions, and diesel soot actually does cause cancer as well, so who might be exposed to that diesel soot? Now, there are noise issues as well, but in my estimation, those would be secondary to the potential cancer risk from the diesel. My third consideration is sensitive subgroups in the area. Are there elderly folks in this area, convalescent homes, hospitals? Where's the nearest school? Kids tend to be particularly sensitive because they run and play a lot. They breathe more per unit weight than adults. People who may be confined to a convalescent home, if that home is near the facility, they're not going to have as many opportunities